All right, let's call to order this meeting of September 5th, starting at 6:30. And I'll ask for a roll call.
Chairman Lloyd.
Here.
Vice Chairman Thomas.
Here.
Commissioner Strong.
Here.
Commissioner Langworthy.
Here.
And Commissioner Ballard will be absent this evening.
Okay. I'd like to ask everybody to stand for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, at this time it's time for public comments on issues that are not scheduled to be discussed on the agenda. Do we have any public comments?
I have none, Chair.
All right. This is to the agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? No. Would someone make a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll make a motion that the agenda be approved as read. I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
4-0. Okay, approval of consent calendar. Can I get a motion for approval of the consent calendar?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar. And I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, moves us to section 2, which is public hearings. We have no public hearings on today's agenda, so we'll move directly into general business, which is 3.1 commercial design guidelines workshop study session.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to make a couple of comments and then I'll turn it over to Karen Gully, our consultant, and Marty, and they'll walk you through the exercise that we'll have tonight. As you know, the council back in June for this fiscal year awarded us, the planning department, some funds to prepare the commercial design guidelines. That's why we are here tonight to kick off this first meeting. Just for background reference, when we incorporated, the county had single-family residential design guidelines that we inherited and have been using for the last 10 years. Those residential design guidelines are pretty good, but we did not have commercial design guidelines. The county was going to work on them, but prior to incorporation, they never got them done, and so we're moving forward with our own commercial design guidelines. What I'd like to do is introduce Karen Gully. She's a senior principal at PlaceWorks. Mark Teague, you know Mark. He's been with us in a number of capacities over the last 7 years. He'll be participating in this as well, and I'll let Karen describe how we're going to focus tonight on these design guidelines and the phone boards and the interaction with the public.
Great. Chairman Lloyd, members of the Planning Commission, welcome me. I'm happy to be here tonight. It's a pleasure to have had this opportunity to begin thinking about architectural styles for your commercial areas in your city. And I've been doing some homework on that. Tonight we've got an opportunity to walk through a variety of architectural styles, get feedback on them from you, and same with the community. They're going to be involved as well. So we're going to start up here, have an initial kind of presentation, and I'm going to invite you to come with us back here to the boards, and we'll carry on the rest of the evening if that works for you. Okay, great. So when we were first brought on, we were asked to review your Wildomar Old Town Vision, which we've done, and as you may recall, back in 2013, part of the visioning involved identifying a variety of architectural styles that you felt worked within your Old Town area. And so we built this effort upon that and supplemented it as well. And so tonight we want to think about the variety of architectural styles that you would like builders and developers to draw from as they plan to develop their new commercial projects. And so it's a menu, so to speak. And then the other question I need you to start thinking about is, Are there certain styles you just want in the old town versus elsewhere in the community? Or can they choose to apply the styles anywhere in the city? So those are kind of two different aspects of this conversation. And then later you've got some dots in front of you, we're gonna give dots to the community, and we're gonna ask you to identify the images that you like best, because as you can see when we walk through this, there's a variety of ways to interpret these styles. And so as we begin to write these design guidelines, it helps us to know what you like in the way of materials and windows and roofs, and that way we can really craft these to give you what you want. So that is what we're doing. So let's start. You've got, and the community has, the same handout. It's the same as the boards in the room. So I'm going to walk through each of the styles briefly. The first on the list is the traditional Mission Spanish Colonial Revival style. Of course, it's derived from the Spanish Mediterranean and early California influences. It is probably the most common commercial style architecture that we have out there throughout Southern California. And because of that, I think over time it's become very commercialized and doesn't really live up to the original historical aspects of the design itself. And so, for example, you've got a couple of good examples here, or you've got a couple examples here in your community. The Oak Creek, where we are now, is certainly, some of it has some mission, and Bear Valley is another example. Typically, they have low-pitched roofs with red tile, arches around doors and or windows, the use of shade structures, such as an arcade or a trellis. Earth tones are a part of the paint that is used. Smooth stucco finishes. Towers are often included as a focal point. Decorative accents from tile to ironwork to timber. Typically there's a strong delineation of a base, a middle, and a top. Oftentimes, even if it's a one-story building, it'll have a two-story or even three-story massing that's articulated. And then you've got ground floor storefronts that are well-defined and differentiated from anything that's going on above the building itself. So that kind of gives you an idea of a traditional Mission Spanish Colonial. I will say here at Oak Creek, it's kind of a variety. You've got some elements that draw from Mission, and then you've got other elements that are from a couple other styles. So this is not a pure architectural interpretation of Mission. The next style is Craftsman California Bungalow. And this style, as well as the Mission, was identified as part of your Old Town Vision project. The Craftsman really emerged from the residential style. It was initially a residential style. It has now been adapted for commercial projects with features that include the artful use of wood and natural materials, low to moderate pitched gable and hipped roofs, exposed rafters and beams, under eaves, decorative brackets and fasteners, cladding of wood or shingles or clapboard, large stone or brick pillars. There's always a horizontal emphasis with vertical accents at the entries and corners, decorative lighting, geometric detailing. These are all kind of the elements that make up a Craftsman California Bungalow style. I think you have a Stater Brothers in town that has embraced some of these elements. The next style is a rustic, okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of background. What is emerging today in our current commercial architecture throughout Southern California falls under this umbrella that we are calling rustic modern. Rustic modern isn't all one architectural style. There's a few deviations or variations of it. And so it's a contemporary interpretation from rural and utilitarian architectural styles. And then it tends to get a little bit more eclectic in terms of combining wood and stone and metal in modern compositions. So under the rustic modern definition, we've got utilitarian, which As you can see here, we've got an example of a McDonald's that has been done in this utilitarian style with geometric box-like forms, overlapping horizontal and vertical planes, unadorned metal, glass, wood, high interior visibility, flat overhanging roofs. Then we have another style that you're probably starting to see more of, and we're calling this farm chic. And it's kind of derived from the barn and the barn look and the rural look. It's a modern interpretation of the ranch style. It incorporates farm forms such as barns, silos, shed, tank houses, granary towers, windmills. Certainly this has been part of your history. And now we're seeing modern interpretations in a commercial form. Both the barn at Wildomar is probably closest to this. Pitched roofs, vertical accents at the corners and entry points, large openings, use of weathered materials. So that's the farm chic. Then we also have something else that's emerging, and it's called a modern cottage. It's got wood cladding, sometimes it has a seaside inspiration, flat or low-pitched roofs, awnings, slim light fixtures. And so, as we talk about these and what you think might fit within the city of Wildomar, it can be one or more of these under that rustic modern category. So the next architectural style we're calling neoclassical. And so this is really, again, a more modern interpretation of historical styles, incorporating elements of classical Greek and Roman architecture. And this is what you are seeing in more mature urban areas. But even here in the shopping center, you've got elements that reflect this neoclassical style. Symmetrical facades with main entrances centrally located, articulation of base, middle, and top, meaning the building reflects a variation between the base and the middle and the top. Flat roofs, often with large projecting cornices, like your Starbucks across the way. Natural color palette or light tones. Materials include stucco, concrete, and stone. Columns, piers, and pilasters. Simple angular forms and smooth surfaces. Sometimes they use arches, usually recessed openings. This style is a very natural style for commercial projects, which is why you do see more and more of them. It may or may not work for Wildomar, but I wanted to put that out there as something that is certainly prevalent in our commercial architectural world. The next style is Victorian. Now, this is an historical style, originated in the mid-19th century. Intricate woodwork, ornamentation, and frankly, where you see this is typically rehabilitated historic buildings that were part of the history of a downtown area. You don't see ground-up commercial done in this style very often. In looking through your History of Wildomar book, it looks like the old Wildomar School was a bit of a Victorian style, so you've got that as an historical precedent. The question is it suitable for other kinds of commercial development? And so you've got projecting bay windows and dormers, towers, turrets, vertically oriented double-hung windows, porches and porticos, decorative woodwork and trim, bright colors and accents, often utilize clapboard siding. Now some of the photos here, like the top left one, is a new development. So there are examples where a ground-up commercial project has been done in the Victorian style. The others are primarily a redo of an existing building. So that kind of gives you an idea of what can be done from the ground up. So that represents the range of architectural styles that really represent what is being done in California, and certainly encompasses what you originally envisioned for your Old Town area. The next piece of the commercial design guidelines is going to include an element related to site planning guidelines. So it's not just about the building, it's about how the site is designed, how entrances are designed, where buildings are placed, where parking is placed, how people get from a parking lot to a building, and walk between buildings. All of that is critically important in designing a site. The entrance, orientation, so people know where to go. And then there's also a public realm component. You know, it's one thing to say you've got to provide 10% open space, but it's another thing to say, yes, and it needs to be done in a way that is inviting and is a place for people to be. So this is the elements of site planning guidelines that we'd also like to include as part of your architectural and commercial design guidelines. So a couple of things. I was hoping to get a little bit of feedback from you before we break and go back there. The first question is, are there any of these architectural styles that you do not think belong in Wildomar?
I personally don't see Victorian fitting here.
Any other comments?
Well, I would kind of agree with that, just because we don't have any surviving structures that we could build off of, and to build from the ground up a Victorian that is really as detailed and with good quality materials is very difficult in today's economy, so with supplies that are available. So if we had some surviving structures, it would be really nice, but they don't exist. So
Any other thoughts on Victorian?
I like the flavor of it and some of the features, but I just don't see it as an overarching theme in town. You know, maybe if there was a focal point and someone really wanted to put that much, invest that much into it, it could be a variance or, you know, that type of shape. But
Any other styles stick out to you as being something that may or may not quite fit? Neoclassical, for example.
I'm going to just step in it and say the Mission Spanish Colonial Revival, just because there's so many cities that have that as a feature. It really wouldn't be a kind of unique thing for Wildomar. So, anybody else want to chime in on that?
Yeah, I've gotten a lot of feedback from people in the community that they don't really, they're not impressed with the mission style for this area. Because you're right, it is so overused in other areas.
Okay.
Well, I think the mission style has also become very kind of washed out. So we're losing the columns and the uniqueness of it, and it's becoming kind of boring.
And
So I'd
we're
rather
not
see a
done.
little more unique.
Okay. And so perhaps you already have enough?
Of the Mission, well, and then just over the Ortega is a community that has lovely Spanish mission style. And so, you know, when you think of that, you don't think of Wildomar, you think of going over to the coast.
Yeah.
And so we really want something that reflects Wildomar.
Okay. Any other thoughts? What about the rustic modern category? Do all three of those speak to you as possibilities? For the modern cottage, the photo in the middle, I included this because it is actually a rehab of an older restaurant that was a prior Mexican restaurant. So I just want to show you that what we're talking about, you know, certainly can be done as part of a facade improvement related to any of these commercial projects.
Well, I definitely think there's features in all three categories under the rustic modern that could be part of Wildomar, features within there that we could use.
Okay.
Yeah, I would say I'm not really keen on the really utilitarian glorified box. I mean, each of those is very nice, but I don't know if that necessarily reflects Wildomar.
Of the three, I think I like the farm chic the best. But yeah, I guess it would depend on the structure and the overall design.
So if it were done right, So the idea is, once we've kind of like honed in on the styles you'd like to include, then we're going to be defining these elements a little bit more in detail. The pitch of the roof, giving a range for the pitch of the roof, giving a range for the acceptable materials, things that are not acceptable. And so the idea being that we provide some more detailed guidance for these things and still provide some level of flexibility as well. But what you're seeing here in terms of style elements would certainly be defined in more detail for the guidelines themselves.
The neoclassical, one example in the lower right, it has some, has a more vintage feel to it, and that, really kind of speaks to me as simple and clean and not overdone. So something of a vintage feel on that.
I like that. Okay.
I also like quite a few of the features in the craftsman style.
And you can see the wide variety of interpretations here.
Right.
But if you've got the key elements in there, you're good, right? You can adapt this style and bring it into Wildomar.
Yeah, we've also seen the craftsman style being put a triangle on top of a box, and that wasn't what we want.
10% detail and 90% stucco, and just not realistic.
Square walls.
A nice box.
So the use of the materials is an important element.
Now, there's parts of the modern cottage that I actually like. I'm not so keen on the lower left, only because that very looks beachy, which is obviously not us. But I did see, I know that there's a shopping center in Temecula, I believe it's the Walmart shopping center, that's this style here on the bottom right. And it's got a wide community area, and it's just a really nice looking shopping center, very clean looking like that, but it's got the growth of the plants and so on, and I kind of like that look as well.
Okay. Any other thoughts before we go? And kind of invite the public to join us and okay, so what we're going to do now, Mark, can you cut? Thank you. You read my mind. You all have dots for each of the boards, and so what I'd like you to do is identify the top. I gave you 3 dots per board. How many dots? 4?
3.
5 times 3, 15.
Okay, yeah, 3 dots per board. And so identify 3 images on each of the boards that you really like. That'll help us hone in on some additional details that we need to work in. And we're going to ask the public to do the same, although we're giving them a total of 12, and they can put them wherever they want. And then we're going to have a conversation about what it is that stood out to you, so we can take additional notes on details.
So, playing by the rules, if there is one design that we just are not interested in, we just hold on to those 3?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes, in fact, if you can't find 3 images you don't like, then don't put any dots on it.
Oh, don't like or do like? Do like.
I only want you to dot something you like.
Green is a go.
Well, green is your go, yeah. They
Okay.
have blue.
Oh.
So they have blue, so we can know who's
Got
giving us
it.
the input. Okay, so three at the most on each board. Because the idea is, we would include these styles, perhaps. Now we'll come back at the end of this and we'll decide, is Victorian in or out? So
Okay,
let's,
and we're not putting anything on the site guidelines?
I don't think so. I
Okay.
mean, you tell me, we can give you more dots. Would you like to do that?
No.
I didn't think so. So let's focus on architecture tonight, and then we can come back and do more site planning stuff. Cool. All right,
That's good.
let's do it. Does
You weren't
everyone have
powered
dots?
with dots.
Okay, we're passing it on.
Perfect. We said 12, right?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Would it benefit us to just wait until they put their dots on? It's up to you, because If they already have an opinion, I feel like.
We're still collaborating, because now we have to talk about this, okay? All right, so initial input was, maybe we already have enough, and yet I'm seeing some preferences for certain, maybe styles or elements of mission that you like. This in particular, anyone want to tell me what they like about it? Is it the overall, the use of the tower element, the arches, the arcade? What is it that stood out to someone here?
The arcade.
The arcade, all right,
Too much sun around here.
all right. All right, and then same thing here, this covered element, all right. Same here, it was the shade component?
Trellis.
Okay, all right, I get that. Yes, I see that now. So, something to think about, and we don't have to decide now. Do you want to keep this on the menu, but have it done right in the future? Or do we just say, there's enough here? So, you don't have to decide that now, but we are going to need direction on that. What about here? What did you like? The lights, the awnings, the introduction of a water feature?
That's when I liked the water.
Okay.
I like natural elements, so.
All right. All right, moving on. The Craftsman California Bungalow, exposed rafters and beams got highlighted, exterior cladding of wood, shingles and clapboard. What did you like here on this photo? The piers, the base of it, simplicity, anyone? Okay. Over here, a lot of votes for this guy. What stood out to you? Was it sort of the kind of low profile? Low profile, quality elements, the trellis, not the trellis, but the use of wood. Okay. And then I assume the gathering place is also something. Sometimes when you have an elevated area, it just somehow sets it apart and makes it a nicer place to sit and to dine. And that can be encouraged, of course, as part of the design of a commercial center. What about this? Is it the nighttime lighting? Is it the roof line? Is it the fact that you've got this taller element here? It's just,
Textured facade.
okay.
I like the lighting with
I
the
like,
roof line.
I like the lighting too.
Okay. All right. We've got it. So everyone likes the fact that a Safeway can do this, right? Nice example for a grocery store, right? Okay. This got quite a few. Kind of a slightly different take, not as heavy looking. What was it that you liked? Is it the detailing on the windows, the vertical element?
The vertical elements for me and the roof line together.
Okay.
I like the awnings on the first floor and then the, I want to say beams under the eaves.
Here?
Yeah.
The exposed.
Yeah, the exposed.
Oh, here.
Right, yeah, those, and, you know, so it's got not just something way up high, but there's some shade down low.
So it's not just a
some
projection,
details,
you've got
yeah.
detail. Nice, good. All right, I know that there's mixed feelings about this, at least that's what I heard.
Just the Barnes and Nobles.
Yeah.
Just
It's
the
got the
Barnes
barn-
and Nobles. Wait,
I'll make it look right, don't worry.
So it wasn't the picture, it was just the Barnes and Nobles.
It's just the use, is that why you picked it? Okay.
That was Barnes and Nobles.
Others kind of felt this looked like a chicken coop, I heard.
Yeah,
So,
or like a big solar panel.
so maybe not architecturally, this is what we ought to be striving for. Use-wise, yes.
Yeah.
Is that what I'm hearing? Okay, good, that's fine. We've covered that. What about this guy? Again, is it the detailing? Simple?
I think it's the use of wood, and again, the exposed beams.
I can see see that being a Trader Joe's. All right, let's move on. Next to a Barnes and Noble. Okay, we're gonna create our own shopping center tonight. All right, rustic modern, I think, wins the night in support here. So I did hear some question about utilitarian in terms of how it's gonna look 20 years from now. It certainly was something that was part of that early vision document that you had. I think these are just outstanding examples of how it can be done well. So let's just talk about this. What do you like about the McDonald's? 2-story up facade, okay? And the use of glass with the wood. It's simple but done well.
I think the whole utilitarian allows the most artistic outbranch from a specific thing. I mean, it crosses over quite a bit with like the Safeway and the California bungalow, and I think
It'll age well too.
I just feel like it combines the olden days with today, the way that it looks. It just, that, at least those top pictures, that's why I like the top pictures. It just does a nice job of that.
And so oftentimes when we think about architectural styles, we immediately think about residential, but the commercial interpretation is sometimes it's much harder to do. And I think that these are some really good examples of, and I think you're right, of being able to branch out. You've given them that liberty with some basic guidance here. Any other comments on any of these? I get the sense you like this upper story with clear story windows. It's happening in all of these, isn't it?
What I like is a multinational corporation has been brought to heel, so I don't have a bright yellow building god-awful signage.
Yeah.
Sorry, did I say that out loud? As a planner? Sorry about that. It's just proof that it can be done. I think that's why one of the reasons that Karen chose that photo. So you're going to get a lot of gnashing of teeth and renting of the air. Wow, we have to have it look like this because it's our brand. Nonsense.
Right, we call that franchise architecture. So
The whole building's a sign at that point.
no franchise architecture. Okay, farm chic, something that we're seeing a lot more of. I appreciate you identifying these elements here, vertical accents, the use of the different forms, the barns, the silos, the sheds. Certainly, that's a great palette for your architects to work from. A lot of stickers for this.
I can see use of siding.
Okay.
Metal, that metal, I like
Siding.
that.
Metal, just siding, something other than stucco.
Okay.
Years ago, I wrote design guidelines specifically.
Yeah, the one on the
prohibited
left I
metal
didn't lean towards just because the color of it. The shape was nice, but the color is really beigey.
Yeah.
And so
Color.
maybe if it had a more vibrant color, it might be more appealing. So, because it's got a good
Yeah.
shape, but the
Color's
color is-
wrong, isn't it? It's just wrong. Okay, so then we've got this guy over here. A lot of votes for this. Do your heights allow for, what are your current height limits for commercial?
We can go pretty high, because the old Riverside County ordinance allowed us to go 40, 50 feet.
Okay, we gotta make sure we can do that.
Yeah, that shouldn't
Okay.
be a problem.
All right. Anything else? Again, I assume it's the use of the materials, the siding.
Structural design.
The kind of hang, that roof little
edge.
porch area over there. Yeah, that right there.
And it's got some variation in elevation.
It's got texture.
It's okay, as long as I can read my own writing. All right, so down here, modern cottage. We didn't get any votes for our little seaside example. A couple of votes for the rehab, which is in orange, by the way, if you want to go there. Great smokehouse. And quite a few. Let's talk about this. I heard some mixed feelings. Some thought this might be too modern of an interpretation, like this could be a rehab of a what am I trying to say? Shipping cart. But it was this kind of outdoor element that I think got a lot of votes. Am I correct in interpreting that?
Yeah, the other buildings are like, they have no style, they're just a box, but the covered part is nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
It brings in
I like the lighting
you
pictures.
know, some of the plants
The
and
plants
greenery.
growing over,
Mhm.
and that to me says, walk around.
It does.
Don't go where you're gonna go and then go home. It says walk around, look around.
Yep.
I like the lighting pictures in the first one, but I didn't pick it because I didn't want people to think that it was, the first one was there, yeah.
Yeah.
I like
You
the
mean-
lighting thing.
yes.
No,
Not that one, you
No,
mean the
this
street
one.
light,
This,
the
yeah,
big
yeah.
street light.
Yes.
really like that.
Okay. All right.
And and keep in mind, some of these existing commercial centers are gonna be going through rehab, so when we write the guidelines, we're gonna have to keep that in mind and maybe provide some additional direction for that. And, there may have to be some lenience with that, right? If you're stuck with a certain roof line, you can't exactly change it. But there are other elements you can do. Okay, neoclassical, not a lot of votes, except for this. So, tell me why you like this.
The shape. It has a throwback feel, like.
I heard the word
It's still very,
vintage.
like,
Vintage,
Yeah.
clean, kind of industrial. I would almost throw it into the rustic, just like pick it off and put it onto the other rustic modern, just because, we've got so many over there. Maybe we can throw that little modern cottage off and put that one over there instead.
So this goes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Swipe right or left, whatever it is.
Bring it down.
Swipe left.
Okay. Not a ton of likes, but certainly some elements.
Maybe it's the plants I like. so
I like the doors,
Yeah.
the big
Right.
glass doors, the big, the windows above the doors, and it's just very, very simple. You'll be able to see what product they have.
So it's a transparency.
Yeah.
That's what
It's inviting everyone to go somewhere.
that word in there.
And I like that
Of course, it's
there's
also
a,
groups.
the awning, or what, no, that's not on here. Yeah, what do you call that? Come on, give me some words. Is that?
Shape structure on it.
Yeah.
And it looks solid, doesn't it?
Mhm.
It's not
Yeah.
flimsy.
So you're not gonna get the noon sun shining down on you, so it'll,
Shading's important in all these styles.
Yeah.
That or rain happens a lot, when it happens here, it goes. So
Yeah.
that would be really nice.
Okay. All right. Victorian, a few likes. And everyone liked, the modern interpretation of Victorian. This is up north. I can't remember what city it's in. But it's in a setting with other older Victorian buildings.
I think that would go good in the Old Town, if you're calling Old Town Central and Washington, Mission Trail, whatever you want to call it. Because the old hotel had a lot of those features before it burned down.
How do you all feel about that? The idea of allowing the
They just
style
tore it
in
down,
your old
tore it
town
apart.
only? I mean, that doesn't mean it can only be the only style, but allowing it in your old town.
The other reason I like it is we've talked a lot about the possibility of doing some retail at the bottom and living at the top. And if we were to find a place or find something that somebody would like to do that in Wildomar, I think that would be a great style for that.
So mixed
That's a really
use.
good use
Yeah,
of
mixed
site.
use.
Yeah.
Okay? But if it's gonna happen, it should happen in the old town area. All right? Okay, I got a lot of nods.
The other, in the right
Oh,
one, I
I'm
like
sorry.
that center.
Oh, yes.
Because again, it's kind of like a fancy version of the neoclassic that we like. It's got the, tall, lot of windows, it's got the, some shade, and, so it's really, again, has that same feel,
Neoclassic top, doesn't it?
so.
Nice. Okay. Very good. Very good. I I know that I didn't necessarily ask you to come over here and vote, but I think it might help if we're doing great on time. Can I just go ahead and walk through each of these photos and you tell me what you like and I'll circle this stuff? All right, so the reason why this was included is because it does show how you can incorporate a very comfortable and safe pedestrian connection through a parking lot. So this would be the kind of thing that we'd be looking for in the future with your commercial developments. This kind of parking, a pedestrian path. Does that work?
Too open to traffic.
I'm sorry?
Too open for traffic?
Yes, too open to traffic.
I'm sorry?
Too exposed, I guess.
Too
is what he's
exposed.
trying to
Too
say.
exposed to traffic.
It allows for cars to go too quickly through.
Germany, France,
So this would be just for
Still
the
has people
pedestrian and
bridges
you're
in
saying
England.
it's too exposed?
it's too exposed. Yeah, somebody could just drive right in there.
So maybe like a decorative
Gives
trellis,
people a
maybe,
false
or
sense of
trees
security.
or something?
Oh, someone might mistake it for a road, basically, drive
would.
down it. They-
So to the extent
Depends on
that
how
Like
wide
roads,
it is,
no
if
cars.
it's 3 feet wide.
So to the extent that we require, you know, some type of designated pedestrian path that needs to be
Like the one in the center.
distinguished from the roadway and amenitized in some way, is that kind of what we're talking about? Okay, good. Now, this is kind of fun, and, you know, this is another example of how you can begin to integrate both outdoor open space and make it usable and flexible, as well as allow for pedestrian and bike circulation.
I like that one a lot.
Okay?
But they're also having a lot of problems in LA because everybody's riding scooters.
Right.
Oh,
Parking them.
Have you
They're
had any
riding
of
through the
those show
pedestrian.
up yet?
Yep.
no.
I think those are only allowed on streets, aren't they?
No, we can ride them anywhere.
Yeah.
The solution to that is a 2-inch gap in the sidewalk.
You shouldn't say
saying.
that.
But it is becoming
Ignore
a
him.
problem in there.
It
Yeah.
is, yeah, it is very much a problem.
Yeah, well, you know, and I think this is where private property owners need to say that those aren't allowed. Or at least walk them, right? Or park them and then walk.
We need to have a development large enough for buildings on both sides too. I don't think there's any parcels around here big enough to pull that off.
Well, there are a couple. All right, and then we just got enhanced crosswalk, so people know that this is a crosswalk. Here, we're showing that you've got a nice place to hang out, close to the buildings, adjacent to a parking lot. Everything's well landscaped. Again, an appropriate use of outdoor open space. And to the extent that you have a lot of employees, perhaps, maybe it's a medical office within one of these shopping centers, what is very common now is the idea of designing what we call green rooms, outdoor spaces, that are just as important to employees as indoor spaces. And so this could be considered a green room.
But they definitely have to have some kind of a shade cover.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not a stick tree.
Absolutely.
20 years it'll be a
Yeah,
good
yeah,
shade.
exactly. All right, does this feel a little safer to you?
It does,
Yes.
it's harder to get into with a car.
He's not kidding, I've seen people do it.
Yes.
Okay. I think what this is showing is, you know, the extending of the landscape to the edge of the street, you know, kind of creating this complete look associated with the landscape and the building, including.
Creates a buffer between the
lighting.
sidewalk and the street too.
It does,
It
and this
also
is,
looks like it's just a bigger sidewalk area. The
Mhm.
whole area is expanded. There's landscaping on both sides of the sidewalk, and it's just a larger walking area.
Maybe even some planter seating on the edge of the center planter.
yeah, so we call this traffic calming, where we're actually extending the curb out at the intersection. So it does kind of provide that additional pedestrian, it shortens the width that you have to cross the street and provides in a way to incorporate additional open space and an amenity. All right, so here we have another example of what could be incorporated into a shopping center.
Yeah, not so much.
I'm sorry, what?
Who's gonna maintain it?
The shopping
Doesn't look all
center?
that great to me.
Okay.
the water feature doesn't look great, or what doesn't look great?
Just the layout of it being right in with the stores, and I don't know, it just seems odd. Maybe it's not something I've ever seen before, that could be.
I've seen the water
I've
features
seen it,
before and
yeah.
they look nice. That one's just an okay version. I've seen better versions.
Right.
I do like the water feature.
I do too. I mean, that appears to be out in front of a restaurant or someplace.
Was that supposed to be
Yeah.
a play yard also?
No, 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 no. This is like seating. So these are restaurants. I'm willing to bet the shopping center has a movie theater,
Right.
right? And so the kids are running around, they're eating before they go in,
Getting wet before they go.
getting wet before they go in.
Is it safe?
Or it just
Yeah.
becomes a destination.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
We went on a road trip this summer, and some of the places we stopped at had areas that were specifically kind of a playground feeling in the middle of a shopping center, the open-air shopping center, and you would have one or both parents just taking a break, letting the kids burn off some energy so that, you know, they could get in the car and go on to the next thing, or that one could go shopping while the other was there supervising the kids. So it's very helpful.
The promenade has something similar.
McDonald's got
They
rid of
do.
all of their
But
playgrounds.
each, you know, this, obviously it would have to be a great design that,
Yeah.
you know, the shopping center would want to continue to maintain and have it as a functional feature, so.
But I know it is inviting for parents to take kids and go use that shopping center, maybe more so than another one because of those features there that the kids want to go play in or whatever, right?
There's one.
I think it's something we should be able to consider.
There's one at Dos Lagos. I know a lot of the mom groups use it.
okay, we'll take a look at that. All right.
That's
So
exactly
this
what
is
I
a-
remember where it was.
This is a brand-new shopping center in Tustin, and, you know, kind of fits within that farm chic design. It actually was, the inspiration came from a building in Healdsburg up in Northern California called The Shed. I don't know if anyone's been there. I took Mark here, and just so he could see it, and we decided that this could work here, and we wanted to build, you know, one of the styles around this. And what's nice is it's got all your traditional uses. It's got a healthcare building, got a medical building. It's got your Stater Brothers in the back with the parking in front that it needs. And then the front of it is lined with the shops and the eateries. And right across the street is a large residential area. Every night, because I drive home this way, leaving my office, every night people are just walking to get over here and hang out. So it's so popular. I just really encourage you to go see it.
I like garden seating, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah. But this isn't the only seating. There's seating all around, all throughout. All right, and then we've got this last idea with respect to the public realm, and certainly this is a kind of much more modern architecture. I didn't choose it because of the architecture. I chose it because of the quality of the public realm, the nighttime lighting. You know, look at the sidewalk. You've got a completely different sidewalk treatment here. It just elevates the quality of the project, and so it's there to think about. All right, any other final comments? Final thoughts? Well, it's been great. All right, shall we retire? Up to the
We can break back.
break back, is that what we
Break
want to
back.
say? Take all the comments we heard tonight and meet with staff and develop a go-forward strategy. We will start drafting the design guidelines right away and come back to you with a draft, and we'll do this again, but with more content at that point.
Karen, I don't want to put you on the spot, but when do you anticipate being able to come back to the commission and the public with the next study session? A couple months, November maybe?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think we could have an initial cut done for you to look at in about a month. And
Okay.
we'll massage it and get it to a point where you feel comfortable bringing it back to planning
That'd be
commission.
great. So the November meeting, I think is the 7th, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so that's kind of when we'll bring this all back to the commission and the public.
Is that meeting full already?
It is full, but I think at that point we'll be able to, I don't know if we'll have all the phone boards up again, is that your thought? If need be, we can have a special meeting in November. But November stuff, because you got Thanksgiving, the 7th is the traditional planning commission meeting, 14th is city council, then the 21st is obviously the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. And so that's kind of tough to get that involvement. We can do it on a Tuesday, we can do it on a Thursday for a special meeting, so it doesn't matter. But so depending on what we discuss in the next month, we'll decide whether we'll do it at that meeting or have a special meeting maybe on a Tuesday or a Thursday.
Maybe the day after the city meeting.
Yeah, or something like that.
So I could see walking through the design guidelines with you all and pointing out things, trying to get your feedback. It wouldn't necessarily be this kind of a workshop. It's more like everyone could be looking at something, public can come up and provide their comments on it as well. We get final direction from you and then we'll go back and finish it up.
On the site planning guidelines, I kind of have a hard time wrapping my brain around a picture like this, looking at it, So if maybe something that is either an overhead look at what it looks like, to give me some perspective, because I can't really I'm not really getting a feel for the differences in it because I see lines and not enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, our idea is to kind of create a typical potential site plan and then have call-outs for these different components. We can certainly do that.
Sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, at this time we will reconvene the general business section of today's meeting. Do we have any commissioner comments or feedback for staff? We've fed back pretty well. All right, I'd like to thank the public, staff, and commission for everything they've helped us with on this. I'm glad we're getting to this level. It's been a long time coming. All right, so next, planning communications. Anybody have things to say? Planning director report.
Just want to let the commission know that we will have a commission meeting on October 3rd. We have several projects scheduled for that meeting, and then November 7th we also have a number of projects scheduled for commission review. And then we'll work out the design guidelines when they bring that back. That's all I have.
Gonna be a big fall.
Yes.
City attorney report.
I have nothing to report this evening.
All right. Does anyone have any future agenda items? No? Then we're adjourned at 7. Oh, there was one other thing. Saturday at the library, we have an attorney who's doing a living trust.
It's estate planning.
Estate planning trust.
Estate planning.
And everyone is invited.
Yep, and it's free.
Wow, very nice.
And with that, at 7:39, I will adjourn.